So I do want to go over some of the tips and best practices as far as what you can do to be safe when you're at a protest or keep yourself as safe as possible, especially in light of the administration's escalating threats against free speech and freedom of assembly. I mean, we've seen a young woman snatched off the streets by masked men because of an op-ed that she wrote for her school newspaper. We've seen men with no criminal record being kidnapped from our country and shipped off to a torture prison. And Trump says the enemy within is next. We are the enemy within. Does that make any of you feel a little scared or anxious? Me too sometimes. But did you know that anxiety and excitement are both related to the same hormones in your body? If you interpret the racing heart and sweaty palms as a threat, it feels like anxiety. If you interpret them as an opportunity for fun, it can feel like excitement. So here's how to be prepared so that the fight or flight, or so that when the fight or flight hormones start flowing through our veins, we'll be ready to take on an uh, authoritarian regime. Sorry, guys, my brain and my mouth are not connected very well tonight. So let's touch on what to bring and what to wear. Dress for the weather, layers that you can easily remove. Wear a hat, face mask, or sunglasses and cover any tattoos or unusual hair color if you are concerned about privacy. Leave contact lenses at home and wear glasses. This is to protect your eyes if you face tear gas or pepper spray. Keep a bandana soaked in vinegar with you in a Ziploc bag or a Tupperware. If you're tear gas, put the bandana over your nose and mouth, and that will help you breathe. You can also bring protective eyewear like safety or ski goggles. Change of clothes in case you are exposed to irritants, and a comfortable backpack or a fanny pack or a shoulder bag to keep things in. When you bring snacks and water, consider bringing a little bit extra in case others need it, especially maybe a hard candy in case someone who's diabetic needs it. Bring some cough drops in case your throat gets sore from chanting. That has definitely happened to me before. A rain poncho, hand sanitizer, definitely some sun protection. We are trying to schedule our protests a little bit outside of the major sun times when we can. And if you're concerned about tear gas, a hat and lightweight long sleeve t-shirt are better than sunscreen because oil-based products can prolong the effects of tear gas. If you want to carry a protest sign, you can use poster board or foam core board and tape a paint stir stick, which you can get for free at a hardware store, and use that as the handle. I made the mistake at my protest of making my signs out of very heavy materials. Your ID, you can bring it or not bring it. It's up to you. Without it, if you do get arrested for any reason, you could end up sitting in jail longer. Check your state's laws, but in Colorado, you don't have to produce your ID unless you're being detained. The easiest way to find out is just to ask, am I being detained? If they say yes, then the law says you have to hand over your ID. If they say no, you can ask politely again, am I free to go? And then they should say yes. If they say no, you're not free to go, then you are being detained. And there are different legal consequences for the police as to whether you're detained or not. So that's something we can go over a little bit more in depth in the future. And then these are some things that you can do before the protest. Make sure you're hydrated and dress for the expected weather. There's a great app from NOAA, NOAA, as long as they're still around. And it will give you the forecast by the hour. So just check for the duration of the protest that you'll be at. Make sure your cell phone is fully charged and bring in a battery extender or solar powered battery backup or battery charger. And then let at least one emergency contact know your plan and make arrangements to keep them posted on your status during and after the event. Let them know where you'll be, how you'll get there, where you intend to go in an emergency, and what time you intend to be back. Also, let them know what steps you would like them to take if you're not back by those times. And then know your environment. You should have an offline map of the venue and surrounding areas available because cell service could be limited in some cases. Plan routes in and out or multiple routes in and out of the protest area. Establish a check-in system with the other protesters so they know you're safe. And have a rendezvous point that is away from the protest area if things go sideways. You also want to stay aware and secure. So maintain 360 situational awareness. Know what is going on all around you at all times. Be alert to anything that seems suspicious, such as a person's behavior, unclaimed packages, unusual activity, or vehicles. If you see something suspicious, find a safety marshal and let them know. Consider, sorry, you do want to consider the ethics of taking photos. Please try not to take photos where everyone's faces are in full view or to the point that they're easily identifiable. Unless those people are your friends, just consider the potential consequences, such as a MAGA boss or a family member finding out. And I want to revisit a little chat that we had about an idea that was going around social media right before No King's Day. It said you should sit down if a bad actor starts a confrontation with police or is vandalizing property or participating in other violence. The idea is that it will isolate the bad actors so the police and media can see that these actions are of one or a few people and that the rest of the crowd is peaceful. This is a bad idea. Moving away from the bad actor accomplishes the same thing. If everyone just backs up, it'll isolate them and it allows you to stay on your feet in case a quick retreat is needed. If you ever feel unsafe, don't be afraid or ashamed to leave the area entirely. Regardless of the anticipated situation at your protest, have a protest buddy. This is a person who will stay with you during the protest, and if separated, you'll have a plan to meet up at a point that is near but not part of the protest. A recommendation for any protest is to write a friend or lawyer's phone number on your arm in permanent marker in case you're arrested. Bread and Roses is an organization in Denver that provides legal services to protesters, and I'll put their phone number there in the chat. Another thing you need to know is your rights as a protester. Your rights are strongest in public places like streets, sidewalks, and parks. You also have the right to speak on other public properties, such as in front of your Capitol, as long as you're not blocking entry. That may vary from state to state as well, so I would double check on that one and can also depend on how many people you're expecting. Counter protesters also have free speech rights. Police are permitted to keep the two groups separated, but will typically allow them to be within sight and sound of one another. If you're approached by a counter protester, you have two options. You can walk away or you can try to de-escalate the situation. I have a couple of de-escalation tips for you and then some great videos that you can check out. So you want to stay calm and keep your voice steady. Avoid raising your voice or matching someone's intensity. Avoid provocative behavior. Keep passive body language. If necessary, walk away and remove yourself from the situation. If you feel unsafe or unsure, simply leave. Next, find a safety marshal who are usually wearing a bright yellow or orange vest and let them know what's going on. They are thoroughly trained in handling these types of situations. So let me put a couple of de-escalation trainings in the chat. One is for participants at protests, and then the other one is for people who are hosting protests. When you're lawfully present in any public space, you have the right to photograph anything in plain view, including federal buildings and the police. You don't need a permit to march on sidewalks or streets, technically, as long as you're not obstructing traffic. If you have a march that is too big for the sidewalk, I would highly encourage you to contact your local police department's liaison and coordinate with them. Like we've been talking about in our meeting and the 1 Million Rising meetings, that we have to have influence on these pillars of support. And the police are one of those pillars of support. So we can walk around saying, F the police, and we're not going to do anything that you say and be super antagonistic about it, or we can not work with them, but at least not piss them off anymore than they already are. So that's my thought on that. If you believe your rights as a protester have been violated, you should write down everything you remember, including the officer's badge and patrol car numbers and the agency they work for. Get contact information for any witnesses. You want to take photographs of any injuries immediately. And once you have all of this information, you can file a written complaint with the agency's Internal Affairs Division or Civilian Compliant Board. If the police order the protest to disperse, they must provide a reasonable opportunity to comply, including sufficient time and a clear, unobstructed exit path. Shutting down a protest through a dispersal order must be law enforcement's last resort. They cannot break up a gathering unless there is a clear and present danger of riot, disorder, interference with traffic, or another immediate threat to public safety. Individuals must receive clear and detailed notice of a dispersal order, including the amount of time that they have to disperse and the consequences of failing to disperse, and a clear exit route before they can be arrested or charged with a crime. And then lastly, what if you are stopped by the police or ICE? Stay calm, make sure to keep your hands visible, ask if you are free to leave. If the officer says yes, calmly walk away. You never have to consent to a search of yourself or your belongings. If you do explicitly consent, it can affect you later in court. Police officers may not confiscate or demand to view your photographs or video without a warrant, nor may they delete data under any circumstances. You have the right to make a local phone call, and if you're calling your lawyer, the police are not allowed to listen. So there's more info on all of these topics, and I'll put a whole bunch of links in the chat, as well as send them out in the email tomorrow. Anyone have questions or anything you'd like to discuss? We had pretty short content tonight.
I would just add some of this is stuff that we've gone over before, but some of it is rapidly changing. And, some of the things that were all right at the beginning may not be as acceptable or as safe as they were before. But that's part of why we're updating these things. And I mean, like what? I mean, if the administration decides to change their tactics and starts federalizing police agencies and simply criminalizes protesting to send people in and mobilize the National Guard to clear places out, the rules that applied before may not continue to apply the way they did in the past. That's specifically what I'm talking about and why we're trying to keep this updated for you. Particularly things like know your rights may change under this administration if they say, they don't need to tell you if you're being detained anymore. They don't need to have their badge displayed, but you know, those are things that haven't happened yet. But as time goes on, we know that the administration wants to escalate their enforcement, even to the point of potentially declaring a state of emergency and suspending elections. And that's why we're treading very carefully. But as that changes, you know, how we protest needs to change along with it. And we need to be aware of, you know, these are your rights now. But that is always subject to change. You know, there was a time that um, citizens, even, you know, native-born Americans weren't going to be caught up in these raids. And the administration has made it clear that they are willing to take the extra people in the raids and send them off to detention camps. And, you know, we don't know exactly what they're going to go after first or how they're going to change. But it wouldn't at all surprise me if attempts were made to remove our rights, especially protesting that makes the administration look bad going in the future, and we need to be prepared for that.
Jake, that's a great idea. I will let our revolution know. They're the ones that are kind of spearheading this one, and we're backing them up. So I will definitely get in touch with them about that. All right, let me drop a few last links in the chat for you, and then we'll call it a night. All right, have a great, oh, Jeanette, go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to respond to the Palantir comment that just went up that I thought was kind of interesting. I know a lot of people are asking what's going to keep happening with boycotts. Tesla seems so successful. Palantir, I haven't heard as much about. I don't know how successful it is, but I was glad to hear that in the chat, that some people are going to continue to try to do that. The other thing I wanted to just mention was what came out today that I thought was pretty interesting, and that was that I think it's CEO, but it's one of the directors at Target was just forced to resign, and they're putting in a new CEO. I just found it really interesting because the article talked about how they'd really lost a lot of revenue, and the new person coming in has been there about 20 years or so, and he started out by saying, well, we need to clean our stores, we need to really stock our shelves, we need to get new inventory. And I thought, are you kidding?
Right.
So I looked for some corporate numbers and made a couple calls today. I haven't gotten any calls back, but I was really kind of trying to be insistent that I didn't want to talk to just a first line employee. And if you look for a corporate number, you can get at least a corporate office person, and they'll say, well, we'll take a message for you, and you can ask. No, I want a callback. I want to know if you're simply replacing one person for another and acting like you really have not seen a nationwide boycott against you, and you're really not thinking about why that happened, and you're not considering changing your DEI policies that you simply dropped and as soon as Trump got in and made a demand, and that's what people are caring about, and it's why we stopped coming to you. So I just thought I'd throw out that word about Target because I think it was really interesting that there really has been a decline for them, that they have seen very seriously. I know a lot of people in the Black community definitely stopped going there at all. But I think some of the rest of us just went, all right, I'll look around, I'll go somewhere else, and haven't gone to Target. And they're feeling it. And so I know a lot of folks keep saying to me, is what we're doing making any difference at all? Are people feeling it anywhere? And I think the answer is yes. And more continues to have to be done. And we're looking for, like with Palantir, what else to boycott? how to continue with Target, because obviously they're feeling the impact of people not going there, and it's not just because they don't have full shelves. So, just trying to give each other information about, and if we hear any more things that are coming up where people are starting to ask people to boycott. I know people around me are saying, well, what's next? What other things are we really going to try to shut down or stop buying and really make an economic impact on them? So I just wanted to raise that.
Thanks, Jeanette. It's always good to see you.
Thank you.
I dropped a link in the chat to major donors to vulnerable legislators. This is something that a woman put together before the big bill of bullshit got passed in hopes that it would influence some of the Republicans to do the right thing. But what it is it's a big list of a lot of the businesses that are donating to people in vulnerable seats. And ideas are to go in front of those businesses and organize a protest, make it uncomfortable for them economically to keep donating to these shitty candidates. So that's one thing on a small scale that we can do. But yeah, I think the economic route nationally is definitely something that I'm hoping that someone who gets a bigger paycheck than me, which is zero, has ideas around what they're going to do there.
Can you, Tiffany, say another word too about, and maybe you did this, I was having trouble getting in because I have a new phone, a little bit more about the 30th. One of the questions I'm getting, and I don't know if you answered this, so I'm sorry if you already did, is people are asking why are there so many different events around Labor Day? And so I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that, because people are saying there's at least 3 or 4 things going on over that weekend. And that's been a little confusing to people. So just kind of how Solidarity Warriors got involved in this one, particularly that on the 30th, and anything about why there's a bunch rather than, like a singular event.
Big solid one. Yeah, I hear you. So we chose to do ours in front of the courthouse, and we wanted to work with our revolution. And basically, I don't want people to feel like everything's splintering apart. What we decided is that sometimes we can throw smaller protests, with just a couple groups here and a couple groups there. And sometimes on much larger days, we may all work together again. It just depends. So we will see what happens. I mean, I don't even know that there's going to be another mass day from National. Maybe there will, maybe there won't. But unfortunately, they are the megaphone that we need to get to people's media to turn out 5 to 12,000 people in Denver. But we are doing our damnedest to make sure that the protests we have impact. So the reason we chose to do our protests against ICE on a Saturday was one, it's much easier to get a permit on a Saturday when the building's closed. But also because even though I wanted part of the protest to be like showing people who are there to go to court that we are there to support them, I didn't want to make things any more stressful for people, with different immigration statuses who are already going through this, really stressful experience of having to go do what lawfully they're required to do and worrying that, it could be the last time they see their family for a long time. So that's a little bit about why we're doing ours on that date. If I still have any energy left, we'll be at the Capitol on the 1st, just to have a table, a booth there. If you guys want to come get some new t-shirts and stickers.
Deborah had a question, and I want to follow up with some boycott information.
That's
So,
right, Deborah.
Hi, can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Yes.
Yay. So I live in the Dallas, Texas area. I'm on the call because I think it's interesting I'm on ground zero right now, and it's interesting to communicate with people who live in a more democratic state. But I wanted to report something that happened yesterday that I thought was very interesting. Um, I'm from the Midwest, and when I moved to Texas, to me, it feels like I'm living in the Wild West here. And a couple years back, there was a very big deal about Second Amendment rights and being able to open carry a gun anywhere you go. And so we had many people walking around with guns strapped on them, and they were not police officers or security guards. And it made a lot of people very nervous. And so stores started putting signs in their windows that said no guns were allowed. And they were quite wordy signs. I walked into a Sprouts the other day and I just noticed the gun sign and I asked the manager, I said, have you ever thought about maybe putting a sign in the window next to the gun sign that says, ICE is not welcomed here? And she was very down with it, but of course, that is a corporate decision. But she assured me that corporate Sprouts had put together a booklet and had all their employees trained on it, what to do if ICE comes in. And she could not tell me what the booklet said, but she did say it does include an announcement in the store so people will know that ICE is there. So I have not had a chance to follow up with Sprouts Corporate to see if they could give me a little bit more information about that. But I thought that was very interesting, and maybe someone on the call knows a little bit more about that.
Tiffany, do you want me to talk about the window clings?
I just posted a link in the chat. We ordered some window cling stickers. You can click on that link and see what they look like. They say ICE is not welcome here in English and Spanish, and then they have a QR code that goes to the ACLU's website on Know Your Rights. At least it should. I think I pointed it there. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. It will by the time. Sorry, my cat is stepping on things. Yeah, don't worry about it if it doesn't go there yet. I will make sure it does.
But Deborah, the idea is just like with our stickers that you can get these window clings and bring them directly to local businesses and hand them out and say, do you want to put these in your window? Or could you please put these in your window? Where I am in particular in Denver is very heavily Hispanic, and handing these things out to particularly the businesses that are likely to get raided by ICE sends a message that says you're not welcome here. And if you put something like that up, it's much easier to defend yourself when they come and say, you're not allowed in here without a warrant. Let's see the warrant before you come in. Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Well, the reason I did it, I forget, I'm on so many Zooms, I forget which Zoom I was on, but they recommended that people start talking to business owners and asking them this. And so that's what gave me the idea to do it. I didn't know if I was brave enough to do it. I didn't do anything beforehand, like make a sign or anything, but I was just there and it felt comfortable to do, so I just did it. So I'm
I
hoping
want to encourage that
that
because
I'm going to be brave enough to do it at another business as well.
yep. Um, so now that you've done it, how does it feel? And do you feel like it would be easier to go in and do it again later?
Yes, I do. And all I did was ask for the manager, and we got very close when we talked, and we kind of talked under our breath a little bit. Um, and we just, it's like I kind of, made it more of a question than a declaration that they should do it. I made it more of a question, like, do you think that maybe it would, work if you had, so I think the way I approached it worked. I know everyone's going to find their sweet spot for that. Um, but I'm a more gentle person, so that's more of my approach. She did not feel attacked or anything. We just really had a lovely conversation about it. And now that I have one under my belt, I go, oh, well, maybe I can have another lovely conversation with another business. Hmm.
I can't promise they'll all go the same, but coming with a respectful, polite attitude a lot of times makes a lot of difference when you're trying to make a point in some place where you may be finding somebody that may not completely agree with you. But this is a perfect example of the things that we've talked about in being in red states where a single individual can go into a store and have a conversation and make a difference. And, it doesn't matter where you come from, there are so many things that you can do. And even if it just makes a little bit of difference with this one person or this one store, when you add it all together with everything that's happening across the country, if everybody does it, it can lead to a critical mass. It can grow the movement and get us where we want to be. And connected to what Jeanette was saying before about boycotting, one of the things I have been struggling with is in previous iterations, boycotting something like a lunch counter or a construction company or a bus system was very tangible, because there wasn't a virtual way to pay for anything. And there weren't companies that didn't have a storefront like Palantir. There's nothing I can do that is going to hurt their bottom line. They are all contracted with companies and governments, and the world that we're living in now is very different from the boycotts that were happening 60 years ago and 40 years ago and 80 years ago. And we need to address them differently. Now, something like the Target boycotts or the Tesla boycotts clearly have made a difference. But how are you going to financially hurt the Trump company? That's completely different because, first of all, to the extent that they produce anything at all, it's real estate. And if you choose not to lease an apartment in their building, they're not going to care. But more importantly, the Trump business model is about licensing his brand. He has worked very hard to make his brand look like everything you want to aspire to be rich. And then he will sell his name to companies in Dubai and Abu Dhabi to put on their buildings and make money from that. And that's where the traditional boycotts are going to need some tweaking. And we're going to need to think outside of the box on how to do these things. And that's where some of the ideas like leaving bad reviews for these companies are going to matter. Companies care a great deal about, getting 4.8 stars out of 5 in 10,000 reviews. And if you start leaving 1-star reviews everywhere, they're going to notice eventually. And those are places where we just need to think differently on how to have a financial impact on this pillar of support for the boycotts. I'm not saying stop boycotting. I'm all in favor of boycotting in the same way I'm all in favor of protesting. But when it comes to tactics, we need things that are larger than just a boycott or larger than just a protest to really bring down the pillars of support that we're looking for. So when we look at these things, it needs to be from an approach of how are we going to have a financial impact on the stakeholders, on the investors, on the people that are benefiting from the profit of these companies that don't have the same traditional model where you can just boycott going into the store and have the same effect. And that's a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated. But there are ways to do it. And a lot of it involves things that you wouldn't normally consider, like things, bad news that hurts their share price, are things that will actually have a much larger impact on these companies than refusing to buy their products, because you can't not buy the telephone spying software that Palantir is selling to governments around the world. So, when it comes to boycotts, I fully support them. I'm just not sure that they work the same way that they did before.
I do want to challenge each of you to grab at least a few business names off of the list that I just put in the chat, who are donating to really terrible people, and leave a few bad reviews for them. Do 5 every day. Make sure you go on their social media and comment on the things that they're posting. Their social media accounts are in there as well for some of them. Jeanette, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to respond to you, Morgan, too. I think you're absolutely right that it's not just about what we buy or don't buy now, but so much is about who we influence and branding. And you can have almost nothing. You can be selling air, but it's your brand that matters. And we've seen in some places, for instance, with Trump and how he really just sells his name on buildings. We have heard of some places, especially that have really mixed people that come and use their hotel or whatever, that they're really starting to hesitate to put Trump on their buildings because his brand, and it was kind of like what happened to Tesla, whether people were going to buy a Tesla or not, to see people start going around with Teslas with bumper stickers that said, hey, I bought this before Musk turned into Darth Vader. I mean, that already told us that they were feeling it, not because I was going to buy a Tesla or not, but because they didn't want to be seen with that brand. So I think that's one kind of really interesting thing that's happening. Second thing, I wanted to really shout out to our sister in Texas, because there are days when I talk to friends of mine and hear, like I have a friend in North Carolina, and hearing what it's like where she is. And they do sometimes a little protest, which for them is a big deal because it is so hostile around them. So I just kind of want to give a shout out to those of you who are seemingly doing small things in places that are really difficult to do them in. And that really gives me a lot of encouragement. And I want to, pass that back to you and really say I appreciate that. The final thing was too, after we listened to 1 Million Rising and heard about putting those signs in windows, one of the things we've done in a church group we're in that has kind of a democracy group now is saying how many wanted to go do this, because it's often a lot more fun, if nothing else, especially if you get turned down a few times, but also there's more of a feeling of solidarity. So we're in the process of getting somebody to create a sign or two for us and go out as maybe 5 or 10 of us down Colfax or over Broadway and kind of hit a number of stores together and then say, well, how was that? And how was that? So that's kind of a different experience to have together. So those are just some possibilities for ways to get out and do that.
I love that idea. I know when
Yeah.
I used to canvas, it was really great to have a buddy on the other side of the street, like not only for safety purposes, but to meet up and be like, oh, hey, how did this go? Or, oh, they were really shitty to you, man. Don't worry, let's keep going.
Well, and
Yeah.
that idea too of it's really not about whether they just put a sign in the store or not, although you'd like them to. It's like our sister said in Texas, it's really, can we start a conversation and have that business owner start thinking about their relationship to immigrants and who comes in their store. The one other thing that came out of that 1 Million Rising that I found helpful that we're also going to try to do is to ask store owners if they will put up a sign somewhere in their store that creates a safe space that says this is a private area, so that if ICE should come in their store, there's a sign that says private, keep out. that if there is someone working in their store that might be undocumented, or if there's somebody that's buying something in the store and ICE seems to approach and start coming in, that the store owner can literally say, hey, we have a safe area in this store. And it's called, there's a sign back here, you can come back here. And it's called private, and to be able to say to ICE people, I'm sorry, you can't go through the whole store. That's a private area for staff, and you know, and I had never thought about creating a safe area actually within a store itself, and whether owners would be willing to do that. So that's another piece that was, so we're going to make a different sign and say to them, hey, could you put this on a door somewhere? And if ICE ever does come to you, if you see anybody that looks unsafe and is looking around like, how do I get out of here? Provide a way for them to just get out of the way. So that was a great suggestion from 1 Million Rising.
I
Yeah,
also
definitely.
want to say to, you know, Deborah and the other people in red states, as somebody who is formerly from a red state, those of us in blue states are standing with you and are fighting for you in ways that you may not be able to where you are. But the reason we're doing what we're doing is to stand in solidarity with everyone. And I don't want you to think that you're being ignored and all alone when all of these things are happening, because it affects everybody, red state, blue state, no matter where you are. And, you know, we're all here to support each other to do what we need to do. And they also, following up on the branding idea, you know, something like a brand boycott, and making a brand look bad is a better way to do it, because Trump loses millions of dollars every time somebody takes his name off a building. And if his brand becomes toxic, that is how we actually can have a financial impact on what he's doing, and especially if we can directly tie it to what he's doing in the government. And that's, you know, one of the best ways, without, you know, doing a sit-in in his apartment building in New York, to prevent people from giving him money. So that's all I've got.
Great, everybody. Have a happy, safe, healthy evening. And we will see you back here next week, where we will hear from Jenna McAfee from the Colorado Immigrant Protection Team.